Welcome, everybody, to the part 2 of our Virtual Candidate Gala Series, featuring even more of our 2020 Illinois Green Party candidates, including keynote speaker, Green Party U.S. Senate candidate David Black. If you missed yesterday's part 1, you will be able to watch that. You'll be able to find that video and this video once it's done on the Illinois Green Party YouTube channel and our Facebook page. We got a great lineup tonight. We have Troy Hernandez, Dr. Troy Hernandez. He is running for Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, which is all of Cook County, that district. And then we have Anna Schiefelbein. She's running for the State House, IL 85, which is in parts of DuPage and Will County. Then we have Alia Sarfraz. She's running for the State House, Illinois 52. And that's in parts of suburban Cook, Kane, Lake, and McHenry counties. Then we have Christoper Kruger. He's running for State House IL 17, which is in parts of suburban Cook County. And then after that will be Tom Wilda. He's running for the U.S. House IL 5, which is in parts of Cook and DuPage counties. Then we have our keynote speaker, David Black. He's running for the U.S. Senate. So quite a lineup, and we had some great speakers yesterday. So yeah, check out our video if you didn't see that. I'll briefly mention a couple things, and then we'll get started with the speakers. We have a very tight schedule to get through all these speakers. Our website is ilgp.org, and at that website you can go to ilgp.org/vote. Or if you just go to that website, it's the top blog post, and that will have all of the information you need about voting, where your polling places are, where early voting is going on anywhere in the state, where you can register. Any question you got, mail-in ballot deadlines. We also have a way there for you to report voting irregularities. So it's very comprehensive. So hopefully folks will find that useful. And now I'm going to start introducing our first guest. Our first speaker, I guess I should say. And that is Dr. Troy Hernandez.
Hi, Steve.
Give me a minute. I want to do an intro.
Okay.
But hello.
Hello.
So Troy is with us. And Troy is a 39-year-old father, a data scientist, activist, and Green Party MWRD candidate. He is a sixth-generation Chicagoan and lifelong Chicagoland resident. In 2013, Troy was one of just 4 Hispanics nationwide to earn a PhD in statistics. Dr. Hernandez is currently employed by IBM. He is also a member of the coordinating committee of the Pilsen Environmental Rights and Reform Organization, known as PERO, P-E-R-R-O, and is an organizer of the Chicago Power User Group. In 2014 and 2016, he was elected to serve as community representative on the Pilsen Academy Local School Council. So welcome, Troy, and you're up.
All right, thanks, Steve. Yeah, we had a bunch of great speakers yesterday, and there's a bunch after me today, so I hope I can keep up. Yesterday, Angela Walker's talk in particular inspired me. Angela Walker's the GP vice presidential candidate, the Green Party vice presidential candidate. And she talked about having to wake up at 2:30 in the morning to get to her truck driving job at 4 a.m. this morning. And that's who the Green Party is. We are regular people, and this is what it looks like when regular people try to engage in our democracy. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey. When you let your political opponents define who you are, it doesn't really work out. So I want to tell you who I am. My journey seemed regular to me, but I'll let you decide. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. My dad's family goes back 90 years in the community that is now Pilsen. My mom's family goes back 120 years in Bridgeport. My roots here in Chicago are deep. My parents divorced when I was young, and then we moved like 7 times by the time I was 7 years old. At one point, the 6 of us shared a 1-bedroom apartment on the north side. And we eventually settled down in Willowbrook. And I would visit my dad on weekends in Burbank and Bridgeview. My mom became a successful entrepreneur in the 90s, but on the road there, things were tough. There's a lot of cereal and PB&J for dinner. The lights would get shut off. We'd occasionally had to dig through the couch cushions and change jar for lunch money. You might be familiar with this experience. So after 9/11, 9/11 devastated the tourism industry. And that's where my mom's businesses were in, and she lost everything. And I was forced to move out on my own. And I ended up moving to Taylor Street with a friend from high school. I put myself through college with some help from my family and securing student loans. I worked every job I could find while going to school full time. I was cleaning toilets, digging ditches. I worked at a meatpacking plant for a year. I was a barista, a tutor, a cashier. I painted apartments in Berwyn and Cicero. I sold T-shirts at concerts, and I spent a lot of time playing in a band in a bar for beers and burgers, and occasionally we would get some extra bucks covering gas money, or maybe a little bit more if we were lucky. I'm the first in my family to get a bachelor's degree. I didn't know anyone in my personal life who went to grad school, but an advisor suggested I apply, and I got a scholarship for my master's degree. And then the Great Recession happened, and I stuck around long enough to get a PhD in statistics, and is focused in machine learning. And that was back in 2013. The tech industry embraced my skill set. They said it was the hottest in the industry, and I thought I'd hit the jackpot. But I could not find a job for many months after I left academia. I had the hottest degree in tech, and I was waiting tables and had $100,000 in student loans. Eventually, I was hired by a Democratic polling firm in Chicago, Civis Analytics, owned by the chairman of Google and current Donald Trump appointee, Eric Schmidt. The level of casual racism I encountered there was worse than any blue-collar job I had worked. The company is now infamous for firing or canceling my ex-colleague, David Shore, for a tweet. Strangely, nobody cared about their racism. They just care about the cancel culture. So I've since moved on and settled into a much less stressful job. So I'm able to be an active volunteer. I was lucky enough to serve as an AI mentor in 2017 for the NASA Frontier Development Lab, using AI to help defend the planet from solar flares and asteroids. I'm a co-organizer of the Chicago Our User Group. This is a group committed to spreading the love of open source software for data science. If you're a tech nerd like me, come down as soon as this pandemic's over, and we'll talk some nerdy tech stuff over a couple beers. I'm also active as a community volunteer. I served on the Pilsen Academy Local School Council for 4 years and worked tirelessly to replace an incompetent principal. It was fairly dramatic. The principal at one point threatened to call ICE on one of the council members. After we replaced him, the school improved dramatically, and we were able to replace a dilapidated annex with green space in the form of a soccer field and playground. For the last 9 years, I volunteered my time doing environmental justice work with Pilsen, with the Pilsen Environmental Rights and Reform Organization, or PERO, among some other groups. We fought to clean up the power plants. We cleaned up the lead in the soil. Hexavalent chromium, NOx, SOx, and nuisance odors in the air. While Rahm Emanuel and his administration were lying to the city and delaying action on lead in Chicago's water, I organized PERO to distribute lead water filters in my community. Now with the MWRD, I hope to address some of the challenges with our wastewater. This campaign just started over a year ago. I was fresh off the heels of an aldermanic campaign where I was Nostradamus-like in my ability to call the issue, corruption. The incumbent Alderman Danny Solis didn't run, and we found out why a short time later. In the middle of the campaign, he was outed as a cooperating witness in a federal corruption investigation. And despite being the only candidate to even mention corruption in the race, not one journalist would credit me. Noam Chomsky said any dictator would admire the uniformity and obedience of the US media. The same is true with Illinois political coverage. And that's why I really want to thank Chris and Steve and Anna for putting this together. And to reiterate the point raised yesterday, we need our own media. We need our own platforms. Our well-connected, well-financed opposition will first ignore us, then they will laugh at us, then they fight us, and one day we will win. So this is important work that these folks are doing, and I hope you continue to support it. Some folks are asking where my running mates are. They're just regular people. COVID has made an active campaign for them very difficult. And with having a job, a house, a new 6-month-old, I'm having trouble keeping up to. So we're asking for your sympathy because we're just regular people trying to run honest campaigns. So now that you've got all that backstory, I want to talk about the MWRD. I believe the most pressing issue facing the MWRD is legalized corruption via campaign contributions. Our uniformly Democratic Board of Commissioners has their campaigns financed by large engineering firms. And when you have big engineering firms making big campaign contributions to the MWRD, you get big, expensive engineering solutions at the MWRD. If there were green infrastructure companies handing out campaign contributions, I'm sure the MWRD commissioners might entertain the more economical and efficient solutions like green roofs and permeable pavers. This year, the Chicago area experienced its wettest May for the 3rd year in a row. These issues aren't academic. This is people's homes and basements and backyards. I don't take corporate campaign contributions, and the reason for that is I want to serve the people of the district. I don't want to leech taxpayers for campaign contributions like typical Madigan Democrats. If you want a detailed list of all the sketchy campaign contributions from my opponents, I suggest you Google Southside Weekly running clean water, MWRD finances. For me, political success always comes back to incentives. And based on the incentives that politicians face, there's no issue that you care about, whether that's schools or roads or parks or pensions, that is going to get fixed and stay fixed until we fix our political systems. Fixing that requires changing the incentives for politicians. That means public financing of elections, putting an end to the gerrymandering of our political boundaries, implementing ranked choice voting. I could go on. I'm sure you'll hear a bunch of these suggestions from my, or other suggestions from my Green Party friends coming up after me. The Green Party is the only one pushing these fundamental changes to our system. And I hope you'll consider voting for us or supporting us or joining us, because we need your help. We're the only party out here pushing for a left progressive vision without corporate campaign contributions. So thanks for your time, and I look forward to hearing some questions.
Great. Thank you, Troy. Yeah, we have a little bit of time, a few minutes for questions. We have a question from Dave Gurin, and it speaks to what you just mentioned. He asks, how much money has Troy raised for his campaign? How is Troy getting his name out to voters?
Thanks for the question, Dave. I believe you can find my campaign on IllinoisSunshine.org, along with all the other campaigns. I believe I've raised about $3,000 this round, and I'm trying to get my name out there using digital media. I've got some of these signs back here. If you want any, you can send me an email or go to my website, TroyHernandez.com, and have a volunteer come deliver one to you. I've got these awesome hats that I had created, the Troy4MWRD hashtag there. This is a hat. I call it the Chicago Cadet Cap. I worked in China for 5 months one time, and went to the Great Wall, and they were selling these hats, and I liked them, and I said, "Oh, what if we put a Chicago 6-pointed star there?" And people ask if I'm a communist. I am not. This is just it's like the Will Ferrell movie. It's provocative. It gets the people going. Is what I'm trying to do with this hat. So trying to raise some money with that and get some people interested in the campaign like that. But yeah, go to the website, and if you want any of those materials, send click the donate link, and we'll hook you up with some swag.
Okay. Another question I have is, what do you see as the future of the Green Party?
So, I personally would like to, after this campaign is over and I have a little bit more time, start up an Illinois Green Party Latinx caucus. I think, as we've seen with Bush and Obama and Trump, Latino voters don't have a great place to go. I'm fourth generation Mexican American, Mexican Chicagoan, and so I'm a little bit removed from what's happening at the border, but at the same time, I remember hearing my grandfather's border stories, and to know that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama signed off on a coup that subsequently created an exodus of people looking for sanctuary that are now held up at the border and now in concentration camps. That's the best we got from Obama, and that makes me very sad. So the Green Party is a great, I think, destination for Latinx voters, and I hope if you're one of those out there, you want to join the Illinois Green Party and come join the incoming Latinx caucus.
Okay, let's see. I don't see any questions, so I will ask you one of mine. So what made you join the Green Party? And we have less than a minute, so.
Okay, well, let me put on a different hat, different color, different style here. My neighbor is Jack Alia, was the secretary of the Illinois Green Party for some time. He founded Pero, the group that I joined and became a member of the coordinating committee. My experience with I'm politically engaged. I was aware of Obama's shortcomings, and in taking that job with Civis Analytics, I thought, all right, maybe the people at the top are bad, but the people on the ground would be better. And it wasn't better. And then I saw the DSA. I supported Bernie Sanders. I donated to him before he even announced his presidential campaign in 2015. I volunteered for his campaign before he even announced. And so I'm a big fan of the DSA nationally. I feel like Chicago, they're a little too aligned with the machine, and I have some research on my website that kind of points towards that. And so the Green Party, I've always voted for the Green Party presidential candidate because I understand that the 5% mark for the Green Party is super important to get to, and a vote for a Democrat is a wasted vote in Illinois. So just that long history is what brought me to the Green Party, and I hope to stick around. I'm new, and the company's been very nice, so I look forward to hearing from some more of my comrades here.
Great. Thank you very much, Troy. And we're going to move on to the next speaker. Thank you. Before I do that, I was remiss in the beginning to mention that I'm Steve Alish, and I'm chair of the DuPage County Green Party. So, hi, everybody. And also, we're calling this a virtual gala. It's not an actual. If it was an actual gala, we would have maybe drinking and be dressed fancy and going for donations and that kind of thing. But since it's a virtual gala, at least we can all drink a glass of wine if we want to during the festivities. So welcome, everybody. So our next speaker is Anna Schiefelbein. And Anna has been active in politics for over 20 years. She continues to work towards social values and equality. Anna is active in the community and was the recipient of the 2015 Outstanding Citizen of the Year from the Village of Woodridge. Anna is endorsed by the Independent Voters of Illinois Independent Precinct Organization, or IVIPO. So welcome, Anna, and we'd like to hear from you now.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks for everybody for putting this gala together. Three of my main issues for running for State House District 85 is education, fair ballot access, and the environment. With education, it's actually tied to the tax revenue. And when people hear taxes, they get frightened. But it's not something to frighten about. We like roads, we like schools, we like these things. People have to pay for them. The whole point was to pool our money together and have equal opportunity and equal access to this money, so everybody rises up together. Somewhere along the way, I feel the two established party system got a little out of hand and is a little power hungry. Let it be with corporate interest and all the corporate donations that come into the state of Illinois into the politicians' pockets. We're talking about Comcast for over $7.5 million since 2003, and lots of other corporations that are just giving money to Illinois politicians. As a Green Party candidate, I do not accept corporate contributions. So back to the taxes. There's something called the LaSalle Street tax. And you're not going to hear about it in the news. You're not going to hear about it from somebody who's wearing a blue cape or a red cape. You're going to hear about it from somebody who's wearing a green cape. Because we can see through reasonable solutions, identify the problems, and get to this underlying root problem of it and try to have it fixed. So the LaSalle Street tax, we can earn $12 billion in taxes if we were to tax the transactions on the Chicago trading market. Currently, there's no sales tax at all. And if we were just to tax a little bit, I'm talking about 0.00004%, we would get $12 billion. And we can spend that money on equal education and healthcare. So we can pull our resources together, have everybody, all the schools in the state of Illinois have the same equal amount of money that they need to educate our children. I'm a mom of two boys, 7 and 9, and it breaks my heart every day knowing that there is somebody in a low-income school district who's not receiving the education that they need, that they deserve, that is their right to have. And because of politics, because corporate interests have ruled the corporate two-party system. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the fair ballot access. Some people, those on this phone call, those on this stream, and others, know that the fair is not fair. Third parties have to work a lot harder. We have to get a lot more signature requirements. Our filing period to get on the ballot is later than the two established parties. This is not fair. This is not the world that I want to leave my children with. I don't want it to leave with two bullies that are there pushing everybody out. A fair example of that is actually the Fair Math Amendment, where it explicitly states that the two top parties get to rule and decide the gerrymandering decisions. That's not fair to me, and I don't believe that is nice to leave for our children. Troy mentioned ranked choice voting. That is another option that we have, and I really wanted to quickly leave off that environmental justice is important. Clean water and clean air are the top two environmental policies that I will focus on. These are all of our heirs, and this is this is all of the water that we have. We need to take care of it.
Great. Well, let's see. What you mentioned ballot access. So, can you talk a little bit more about your concerns about ballot access?
I can, and it leads to something that Troy was saying as well with corruption. I was a Democrat for a long time, but I could no longer pretend that the corruption was fine, that the pressures were fine. These are adults who are in our elected officials' seats. They need to be acting like adults. They need to make their own decisions. They need to represent the people and not just the policies, and not just some one person who's been in office for way too long and doing possibly not so great stuff. So we do need regular people in office. I do encourage people to run, whether it be with the Green Party or any other party. We need more normal people running for office and being elected in office. We need to make sure that the people are being represented, not the corporations. Corporations do not vote. People do. And we need to make sure that we have a fair system in order for the people to be represented fairly and adequately. I do stand for equality. This is my first time running as a Green, so the media blackouts are real. I'm working very hard with trying to have the corporate media acknowledge some of the Green Party policies. We have a nice array of reasonable policies on ilgp.org/platform. It's a great read. So I do enjoy pushing forward new policies that you're not going to hear about through the corporate media or the two established parties. And you're also not going to get the fair access through them as well. We need to make sure people are represented in the State House and in other offices. And this two-party system is not working out. I am a disenfranchised person before I found the Green Party, and now I am so lucky that I found a party that represents social values and human rights like I do.
All right, Anna, we got time for one more question. You have less than a minute. So the last question is, how will you bring equal education to Illinois? That sounds like more than a minute. So if you can keep it.
Well, it's the revenue that would be raised from the LaSalle Street tax. We would get $12 billion. We'd put it together in a pooled fund. Do not put it in the general fund. Earmark it out and give it to the schools that are needed.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. And we have to go on to our next speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alia Sarfraz. And just give me a second here. I have a bio for Alia, sorry. Alia has a background in science and law and has worked on governmental initiatives and law reform proposals, working for communities in Australia and the USA. Currently, Alia has a vision to be in the district that everyone in Illinois will aspire to, as she runs for a House of Representatives in District 52. She has a global perspective in assessing issues and concerns and has blogged, represented clients, be it plaintiff, defendant, or the government. For that reason, she can advocate for all on a just and fair playing field. Aside from running, she currently works for health insurance in the recovering and negotiating cases of those who were wronged by another party. So welcome, Alia, and it's your turn to speak to the people.
Hi, good evening. I'm basically here as a voice and part of the movement we see globally of women and the rise in leadership roles. What we are finding is that women have tended to proven better in terms of leadership skills, and the ability to come out of COVID is actually in the span of a lesser time than where leaders have been males. I'm not here to divide, but it's just proven that the empathy factor, the nurturing, the other aspects of our personalities that we're able to bring to the table cannot be overlooked in today's time. And we are at a time when we are seeing globally the rise of Greens, be it in France, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. So I do feel that sooner or later, we are here to stay. We are here on the rise. And it's just a wonderful time to be part of this movement and rise to power. And the power isn't about having greater control of people. It's about representing people. We're not here to represent corporate interests. And we are literally here to get on the ground to see what the true voter sentiment is. And I do believe that that is what is needed now more than ever. We are seeing people that are struggling financially with healthcare and so forth. And for some reason, the media isn't covering the real issues. They're projecting what the corporations want projected in the news. They're suppressing third and other party candidates as well, simply because our platform is what scares and threatens them, because they're more concerned about their pockets than the actual people. And now people have the chance to grab at the power that they're being given by having Greens and other, candidates on the ballot. During COVID, we are seeing more independent Greens, libertarians, and so forth come on the ballot, have greater access, and that was due to an order that was passed in the courts. And though the other parties may not have liked us to be there, it gave rise to a greater democracy across the board. And I do believe that people are listening to what other parties are saying. For some reason, the first presidential debate that was held did not gather the response that people wanted. They were frustrated, and the Green Party website crashed right after the debate, which indicates the high level of interest that has come through. We are seeing a lot of people that are frustrated with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and they feel that we represent them better. So we are looking here and looking to the youth to also advocate for issues that concerns them in the future when it looks to what is needed when it comes to climate change and so forth. I know in my canvassing, I came across people who said to me that their children were educating them on the Green Party platform and they knew what it was about. So I didn't even have to answer any questions when it came to them. And I think that was very interesting that now people are looking to the youth for greater education. The tables are turning, the times are changing, the tide is rising, and it's moving towards green. People are aware post bushfires in California that, climate change is real. Business owners are frustrated due to the impact that they have suffered as a result. And everybody's taking note. People can listen to a politician, but they can also see what's happening. People aren't stupid. People are very, very engaged right now. And I think that's part of the anger. And bipartisanship is simply not serving the people. And what I bring is uniting people on a platform. I'm here to work across aisles. And I really don't see that I could add or inflame tensions. I want to reduce whatever sentiments people are feeling. And that is very important to me overall. So what I also want to talk about is being more transparent with people, keeping to certain issues and ability to even campaign with less money involved. I can prove that I have run this campaign with minimal funds, and both of the people that are running against me have a lot of money behind them, but yet my voice is exciting people across all of the USA. So that within itself shows that we can take the money out of politics. I'm more about people and issues, trust and safety, checks and balances, keeping it green, and fiscal responsibility. And just even the way I have handled my campaign shows that I'm fiscally responsible. We don't need to increase taxes. We can come up with creative ways to show people that we can raise revenue. People don't want to hear that they're going to be taxed more during a time like this, during COVID, when things are difficult. Families are really feeling the brink and people are out of pocket. Nobody wants to pay more. People want someone who can think outside of the box. And that is what the Green Party does. We can have a public bank. I don't know why people are so scared of that. We can do so much more with taxing where it is not good for the environment. We can look at giving incentives to local business, reducing taxes where required, so that people can gain and benefit where necessary. So I hope people are thinking and really wanting to vote based on what issues and candidates represent, not just based on party lines. And I do have a background from Australia, and I see what Australia has to offer in terms of even healthcare. And I think when people look at healthcare in America, they are scared of anything that has to do with the government in healthcare. And I think it's simply because people don't trust the government here. And it's unfortunate that that level of trust doesn't even exist. 3 out of 4 people that I questioned seriously did not trust the government. And that is alarming. It shouldn't be like that. We should be able to say that we are solely and able to trust the government and the way things are run and handled. But that's not the case. And it's unfortunate. And I hope to bring that. I want people to be able to say, I'm safe and secure in this kind of leadership. This leader is able to assess a situation, and I believe that person. So I hope that people are now able to do that. And when it comes to healthcare, I can tell you that Medicare is not something to be scared of. People think that the government will take over and government-controlled healthcare is alarming. It's not the case. It doesn't work like that. And I think during COVID, it's very important to go back to that. And the Green Party is the only party that's talking about Medicare right now. I also see the trend towards, caring about the climate and the local farmers. We need to give back to our own communities. Why not? I want people to deeply think about that. Why are we giving to other people and not ourselves?
Okay. Thank you, Alia. We have about 5 minutes left for questions. Bless you. And we have a question from Dylan Weber. I think this probably was a question for Anna, but I think it certainly applies to you too. How were you able to campaign during COVID? And what was the biggest change this cycle compared to other cycles?
Well, previously, I haven't worked on my own campaign during COVID. On my own campaign in another season, but I have worked on other people's campaigns. I've worked on the campaigns for the mayor of Chicago. I've worked on campaigns for other Congress people that were running as a candidate, and their events were much more. There was more engagement with people, more of a hype created due to having greater access to people. Right now, it's very hard to get hold of people, but then we have to take technology and use that as a medium to assist us in every way possible and to get our name out in other forms like media and so forth. I also did utilize my petitioning for the benefit of having some e-petitions, but then with some people I did go out and engage with them one-on-one. And I think that's one of the pluses that I had to offer, because I do have an element of youth on my side, which sort of helps in terms of, having a better immune response to maybe dealing with COVID and overcoming the possibility of not suffering to as a great extent as somebody who would be more elderly had they had stepped out to the streets and so forth. I was also campaigning outdoors more and kept my distance from people. I think that was very important.
Okay, thank you. We actually have another good question from Dylan Weber. He asked, what was a major factor for you running in this cycle in particular?
I think I took an approach of less complaining and more action. And I really felt like what I was reading and seeing, that the candidates weren't up to par with what I believe should have been done. And at times you have to develop a level of faith and confidence within yourself to say that I am capable. And what I am finding is that I believe in myself. The strength in what I bring with me is much more than what the other two have to offer. At one point in time, people will get sick of having the same old situation repeat over and over. And I am finding that a level of responsiveness is much greater with younger people as well. I know even with people that are more elderly in age that have seriously sat back and given a lot of thought, are also very curious about some of the ideas that I present.
All right, thank you. We've got time for one more question, a couple minutes left. The next question is, the Green Party has a significant presence overseas. Why do you feel that it has not grown here in the USA?
A lot of things in the USA, I feel, is more traditional and conservative. I believe that people overseas don't have the type of news that is generated here as well, and that plays a big factor. There's greater fear that is presented in the TV. And I know when I initially moved here, I could only take TV in small doses. And sometimes I don't even listen to the media. I prefer reading as opposed to listening, or sometimes I do engage in certain clips. But we are living in a time where, though people may not like Trump, he has made some things transparent, such as the possibility of fake news. Not all news sources legitimate, or some of it has, a bit of spice and sugar added to it. So I think from that point, people have started to identify and recognize that we can't take everything at face value.
Okay, thank you very much. We've run out of time for because we got to move on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Christoper Kruger. He's running for the State House, IL-17, which is parts of suburban Cook County. And Christoper Kruger is an anti-war, civil rights, and labor activist. He has lived in and near the 17th District his entire life. Chris has been fighting for the ordinary citizens, homeowners, employees, students, and consumers against unfair and unjust practices for 16 years as an attorney. Prior to becoming an attorney at the age of 50, he spent 20 years in manufacturing as a factory worker and union representative. Christoper and his wife, Stephanie, have 5 children in a blended family. in a district that is increasingly divided and neglected by its elected officials. Christoper will act as an unbossed and unbought voice for the people to transform the 17th district from donor-dominated party politics to people politics. So welcome, Chris, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks very much, Steve. Can everybody hear me okay? As a child growing up in the turbulent 60s, I was very much moved and affected by the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement. And I became a fighter on behalf of both of those movements. I was looking at some documents recently that were so seminal in that period, and one of them is called the Port Huron Statement. The Port Huron Statement was the inaugural document of the Students for a Democratic Society. It was largely authored by Tom Hayden, and a lot of it was about renouncing class and race privilege, renouncing white privilege, renouncing the class privilege of the upper middle class, largely white college students that form the new left. And so to us, when we hear about privilege, it's kind of for us, we've been there and done that. And we have, many of us, dedicated our lives to that. And I think of our presidential candidate, Howie Hawkins, who was privileged in that he went to Dartmouth College. And yet he renounced that, and he immersed himself in the working class, immersed himself with the struggles of ordinary working people. And so I have done very much the same. I did not complete high school. I dropped out of high school to participate in the anti-Vietnam War movement and the civil rights movement. And I got a job in a factory because that was the counsel of many of the left-wing organizations of the 60s to immerse yourself in the working class and try to make change from the ground up. I was fortunate to get a job in a plant that was organized by the UAW. The UAW has many positive historical notes. The UAW was well represented at Dr. King's March on Washington. The UAW actually sponsored SDS and helped to fund SDS in its inaugural convention. So I was fortunate to be in there for 16 years and to be an advocate for workers on a shop floor. So becoming an attorney for me at the age of 50 was really just a way, another tool in the toolbox to fight for the working class. And when I hear of a labor dispute like the UIC hospital strike a couple weeks ago, I was on the picket line there. I couldn't think of another place to be. When I heard about the hotel workers in Chicago last fall and winter, I had to be on the picket line. I couldn't think of another place to be. When local 701 IAM, those are the auto mechanics in the Chicago area, when they were on strike 2 years ago, I had to be in the street with them. That's the only place I could think to be. I can hack policy. I can hack law. I have a law degree. I have a master's degree in labor relations. It's actually called industrial relations. But I am an advocate more than I'm an attorney. I'm a fighter for the working class. So I want to see improvements to Illinois' labor laws, like the Davis-Bacon Act, that's the Prevailing Wage Act, like unemployment security, like workers' compensation. I want to see improvements to debt-free public education. I want to see improvements to our environment, and I want a real Green New Deal like our nominee, Howie Hawkins, has fought for, and not a Wall Street, not a Michael Bloomberg Green New Deal. And we need to get out there and denounce the Michael Bloomberg Wall Street pseudo ersatz Green New Deal. I have actually a couple of YouTube videos. I'm not super techie in terms of doing some outreach, but I have produced a few tapes. I think that the single most important thing distinguishing the Green Party is the donor-dominated system. I think the single most important thing is that you don't take money from donors. I think most people of reasonable disposition are going to make the right decision for the people as long as they are freed to work for the people. So I'm very humbled to be with such a great slate of candidates. I'm humbled to be in the company of people like our co-chairs, Steve and Rich Whitney. I met Rich Whitney in downtown Chicago about 2009 with a crazy lawyer that I was working for who also represented the Green Party in federal court. And when I heard that Rich Whitney was being denied the opportunity by WTTW, by the public TV station in Chicago, to debate with the two candidates, I was outraged, and I had to jump in and I had to file a lawsuit. And that lawsuit's called Whitney versus Window to the World Communications. You can read it. We did not succeed. And what you learn in law is that law evolves over a period of time. So from Plessy v. Ferguson to Brown versus Board of Education, there can be 30 cases, but you keep chipping away until you reach your goal. So we're just going to keep chipping away. We're going to continue to fight totalitarianism. We're going to fight this monopoly capitalism. We're going to fight this destruction of the planet. We're going to fight for ordinary people. We're going to fight for Black and brown men and women, LGBT, and everyone in our society to make a better world. So just so humbled and so grateful to be a part of the Green Party's effort in 2020.
All right. Thank you, Chris. I've been told that people are hearing some kind of echo, so I've switched over to my headset. I'll look for the control room to let me know if this is better or worse. I do hear an echo. I don't know if it's, I want to blame Chris, but anyway, we have a little bit of time to take questions. And first question that I have is on the Fair Tax Amendment. Now, the Illinois Green Party supports the Fair Tax Amendment. Could you talk a little bit about your position and your thoughts on the Fair Tax Amendment?
Well, there's no question that the voters need to pass the Fair Tax Amendment. I will vote for the Fair Tax Amendment. I believe in progressive income tax in all instances. I was looking up a listing of the state by state, and Illinois really, well, I'll put it this way. New York and Hawaii have the highest marginal individual tax rates at 13.8%, I think 13.5% respectively. So asking the mega rich, as I call them, to pay more, it is completely understandable that a large segment of the population don't trust the people in the General Assembly. That's why we have to have donor-free candidates. We have to have donor-free representatives in the General Assembly to as a check on the corruption, on the unbounded corruption of the two parties. So I understand when people vote against the fair tax because they think that money's going to be thrown away, but they really don't understand that it's the mega rich who have to pay. And it's actually going to alleviate, my own brochure says that the fair tax will alleviate, not aggravate, the tax burden on the middle class. So I believe in the fair tax. I believe in the LaSalle Street tax. I believe on taxes on extremely toxic conduct like the use of plastics. Frankly, I'm still looking at the idea of taxing sugar and diabetes, given the epidemic nature of the effect on the population of diabetes and stuff. So I think the revenue is there. It's the political resolve. So that's when I say that the policies are out there. There's a lot of smarter people than me. Like when they ask people about the pensions, you need to actuaries about pensions, okay? Actuaries are people who design pensions, not politicians, but you need political resolve, which means you cannot be owned by the donor class, and that's what I will never do. I will never be bought by the donor class.
You know, one thing I was surprised at, I read the booklet that the state sent me about the Fair Tax Amendment, and there's a section in there on called, like, I don't know what they call it, but it's basically pros and cons of the Fair Tax Amendment. And the things they listed as cons just sounded like the right-wing talking points. They had nonsense in there about it would cause the state to tax retirees, which we know is not in that amendment at all. And I mentioned it yesterday, but maybe it's because I'm 65 and I'm a retiree, but I've got to mention it again because I know there's probably a lot of people that weren't listening yesterday. This false argument that it's going to cause the state to start taxing retirement income, it's actually could be quite the opposite. If people don't vote for this and it doesn't get passed, now the state has a $3.2 billion budget gap. So they're more apt to start taxing retirement. So I think people really got to think about this that are opposing it. So next question.
Well, Steve, you know what I was going to mention is that's why I'm not shying away from even mentioning foreign policy in my campaign, because when the federal government spends 62 cents on a dollar for the Department of Defense to build weapons and for the intelligence community and for the State Department to overthrow governments, that's money that the state can't get. So a long time ago, I can remember a guy named Jarvis, and there was a bill called Proposition 13 in California, and that was the original tax revolt. That was in maybe as long ago as the 70s or 80s. And what they found out was every dollar that was cut by the state, they had to raise the tax in the municipality. They had to raise it. But if the state cut the support for transit, the locality had to raise it. So the same thing is true with the Trump budget cuts, Trump tax cuts rather. Since the election of Ronald Reagan, the Republicans, with a lot of the Democrats helping them, have cut the highest marginal tax rate 6 times in the 40 years since the election of Ronald Reagan. So that is where the money is going. So when we kind of compartmentalize the state as if it's a separate entity from the federal government, we're really missing the point. So that's my view on taxes. Is we need to look at the holistic at the whole situation. It's the same party in D.C. The Democratic Party in D.C. is the same Democratic Party in Springfield. The Democratic Party and Republican Party in D.C. is the same Republican Party in Springfield.
Very good point. And we'll have to end on that. Thank you very much, Chris, for joining us and for running. If I lived in
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Steve, I can't believe you're 65 years old, Steve. You look so youthful. I'm shocked.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say.
Okay. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Tom Wilda. Tom is running for the U.S. House, IL5, and he's running in that district is in parts of Cook and DuPage County. Tom grew up in Chicago and spent 40 plus years in community mental health, schools, community organizing in Chicago, New Jersey, Lima, Peru. And Tom is a social worker. He has been active in the sanctuary movement in the 1980s, as well as an advocate for the homeless during that time. Tom is the co-founder of a shelter for homeless women and children in the Woodlawn neighborhood of Chicago. He was also active in the anti-nuclear movement. Tom is a recent founding member for the Alliance for Just Money. So welcome, Tom, and you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Steve. And it is, I have to say, so good to be with you all. I'm just so impressed with everyone's ideas and humbled and so desirous of wanting to actually have a lot more dialogue with you all. But I've been active in the Green Party now for a number of years, but this is my first run at office. And I thank people who were interested in and pushed me a little bit to run. I've been having a great time doing it, and I love to talk about some of these issues. So I want to just say that we're coming off here 40 years, probably more than 40 years of neoliberal economics, neoconservative politics. And in those 40 years, and really probably we can go to more than those 40 years, we've seen terrible things happen. Terrible things. We've had terrible trade agreements. We've seen the increase in inequality that's just been tremendous. We see a loss of meaningful work, a loss of meaningful jobs, and certainly a loss of good paying jobs in the country. We have terrible economic degradation. Look, we have hurricanes, so many of them that they've run out of names this year. We have droughts. We experienced a drought here in Chicago during the summer. We have these incredible fires in Colorado and California. Basically, they're tinder boxes, and then we have floods. So it's all over the place, and we have to begin to address these things now. We also have seen an increase, if you could believe it or not, of police brutality and increase in objectless wars. We're in 7 wars right now, and nobody knows exactly why. Well, the rich would know exactly why. You know, we're looking for resources. We're also looking for trade routes and pipeline routes and that sort of thing. But the common person, we don't know why we're in all those wars, and we shouldn't be. 7 of them. And we also see, I look at all these things in the past 40 years or maybe more, that these policies really have created a suppression of imagination in the people. They can't really begin to imagine something different. And so they were getting caught in this box of having to choose between two corporate companies, two corporate parties. That really there's very, very, very little difference between the two. What they do on television, their antics, that's all theater. That's all theater. In the end, they really agree with each other, and they push the same neoliberal and politics and neoconservative politics. So the Green Party is offering something different. I want to offer something different. Here's what I want to offer: Medicare for all. There's no reason, especially during the time of COVID, that the COVID has shown us that tying medical coverage to a job is ridiculous. So Medicare for all is just medical care, health care is a right. We have to forgive student debt. 100%. How can we do it? I've got plans for doing it, but we've got to end student debt. Keeping students in debt is indentured servitude, which is the object of the economies that that these two parties have produced. I'm for a UBI, universal basic income, especially now during COVID. Many people have lost their jobs. 40 million have lost their jobs, but I think it should be for everybody for all time. And I have a pretty high mark. It's $3,000 a month. So $3,000 a month per adult. Adults wouldn't have to worry about paying rent, mortgage, basic necessities, food, transportation, and that would actually free them to be creative enough to contribute to the economy in other ways. I know that that conservatives won't believe that. They think people give them money and they won't work. I don't believe that. I believe in a sense of humanity where people do want to contribute, they do want to be creative, and giving them money will actually help in doing that. It also would eliminate the humiliation of having to prove that you need money, having to go to somebody and prove with documentation that you have no money. It also gets rid of all the bureaucracy that have to look at those people and that have to prove that they need help from the state, and it frees up all kinds of creativity and money from eliminating that bureaucracy. Of course, I want an end to the wars, immediate end to the wars. Bring the troops home, spend the money here. 50% or more reduction in the military budget. I want all money out of politics. I don't take any money. I've raised maybe a few $100s, but we've run this campaign on less than $1,000, and it's possible. Both my opponents, by the way, take hedge fund money. Police reform. Yeah, I'm for defunding the police. The police have become a depraved institution, and I don't think we can fix it. We have to eliminate it and start from scratch. Immigration reform. We have concentration camps on the border. Troy mentioned where do those refugees come from? It comes from our covert intervention in countries in Central America, and intervention that has been going on for way over 100 years. I'm for an end to the incarceration state. We've got mostly black males, but brown males that are arrested for very small petty crimes that end up spending long years in jail and basically having to work at slave wages. That's actually constitutional, believe it or not. So yeah, we've got to get rid of that. And I'm for a guaranteed job. Anybody who wants to work gets a job for a fair minimum wage of at least $15 an hour, if not more. And I'm for monetary reform. You know, we don't have sovereign money in the United States. We have given over the money creation to the banks since the institution of the Federal Reserve in 1913. And the banks create our money, and they create it with debt. So we have nothing but debt, and that's all we hear about. We can't have nice things because we have so much debt. We can't have Medicare for all. We can't have free education. We can't have a Green New Deal. We can't have infrastructure improvements because there's no money. Why? Because that's all we got is debt. Well, that's a trick. That's a trick. And we can get around that trick if we can let people know we can create our own sovereign money. So I don't know. I guess I'll probably stop there. I've got, I don't know if I have any more time. I could talk about a number of other things, but we could also ask some questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, we have about 5 more minutes for questions. You mentioned defund the police. I have to ask about that because that is probably one of the most controversial subjects. So I'm curious to hear your take on that. Some people have different interpretation of what that means.
Okay.
So,
well, thanks, Steve.
Your position. Go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, it's a local issue, not federal. But you know, I would definitely support it and push it in any way I could. You know, the police have become a depraved culture. And when you enter into the police force, into a depraved culture, you either become like those people or you get out. If you try to be different, you're going to be swallowed up in one way or another. So I don't think there's any way of changing that. The way things are. I would be for, we'd have to work out a way of doing it, but for closing the police departments down. Those officers can reapply for their jobs. We can review their record, see which ones we want to take and which ones we don't. And then we can really go on a training period in which they learn nonviolent techniques. They really learn how to police. We've got all kinds of crimes in Chicago that never get solved. The police are incompetent at solving crimes, but they're pretty good if it comes to, well, what can I say? Take a look at the, I don't think things have changed much, but take a look at the film on Netflix right now, The Chicago 7. And you see, that basically the job of the cops was to bash heads. So, we've got to change that culture. And I don't think there's a way of changing it or reforming it. I think we have to end it and start a new one.
Okay. I don't think there's a more important issue than global warming. I would just call it mass extinction. That's really where we're going. So I know you said you support the Green New Deal. Can you talk a little more about that and the urgency?
Oh, absolutely. We are on the edge of extinction, and gives me great pain when I see I've got a lot of people that are having babies these days, and I wonder, how old those babies will be before we hit some pretty terrible times. We need to get off fossil fuels immediately. Can we do that with the development of cleaner technologies to some degree? But I don't know that we're going to be able to do that completely. We've got to be able to find ways of reducing consumption. That's the main thing. I think Howie's got some plans for that in terms of the Green New Deal, moving towards light rail, and we do have technology to really reduce the amount of energy we need in some of those regards. I think, we got to get off cars. We've got to have people have access to be able to work closer to home, to be able to get to work with more simple means. We've got to certainly stop the terrible mining and manufacturing that's polluting our world. We've got to develop better ways of agriculture. We've got to work on developing soil, reclaiming forest land, grow on less land. We've got to agricultural. We probably have to reduce our herds. We might have to reduce our meat consumption and get more on a plant-based diet. So there's a lot of ways to go, a lot of things to talk about, but it is an emergency. You're absolutely right, and we have to treat it as an emergency. And we're not under the type of capitalism that we have. We can't do that.
Okay, thanks, Tom. As you know, I'm chair of the DuPage County Green Party, and so we have a little bit of your district in our county, and we're just thrilled to have you running.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to have had the opportunity to talk about these issues and to talk more in depth about these issues with a number of people. So it's been a great opportunity for me, and I, of course, would like to win and get a foothold somewhere for the Green Party. But if I don't, we can make a good stand, and maybe we can do it again if we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. Our next speaker is, and he's our keynote speaker, David Black is running for the U.S. Senate. David has an MA and PhD in political science During and after a brief college teaching career, he earned a law degree. David spent 37 years practicing law in Northern Illinois, representing auto workers in their everyday legal needs. After retirement, he started a volunteer pro bono practice assisting individuals in the expungement and sealing of their criminal records so they could seek meaningful employment. David has also twice volunteered in Tijuana, Mexico, assisting asylum seekers in their efforts to obtain a safe haven to resume their lives. He was a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War and has consistently worked for peace since then. In 2006, David received the Peace Activist of the Year award from the Rockford Peace and Justice Action Committee. He has signed the Green Party of the United States Peace Pledge for Senate candidates. David is a longtime Green Party activist, serving as Illinois Party Secretary and as the candidate for Illinois Attorney General in 1996 and 2000. So it's great to have David here. He's the top of the ticket here in the state. So we're just thrilled to have him. So the floor is yours, David.
Well, thank you, Steve, and to everyone else who organized this event. As Steve just mentioned, I was a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War and have signed the Green Party of the United States Peace Pledge for Senate candidates. One of the major issues I need to highlight is war, peace, and militarization. And I'd like to highlight some of the relevant portions of the Peace Pledge because they do speak to this issue and to the Green Party's position on war, peace, and militarization. In this pledge, I recognize that all acts of military aggression are illegal under established international law. I recognize that all acts of military aggression are fundamentally immoral and never justifiable, and that the use of military force can only be justified, if at all, as an act of self-defense to repel an actual attack on the United States or its people. I categorically reject the doctrine of justification for wars based on claims of preemptive action. I recognize the U.S. military aggression arises from economic motives aimed at enriching our wealthy by controlling the resources, markets, labor, and wealth of other nations. An additional economic motive is to enrich the military weapons industry and its beneficiaries, also known as the military industrial congressional complex and/or the national security state. I recognize that Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution gives Congress the exclusive authority to declare war. In recent decades, Congress has abdicated its responsibility and authority under that provision and has given the president virtually unchecked authority to order acts of war against other nations with little oversight and even less resistance. If elected to the U.S. Senate, I promise to invoke Article 1, Section 8 in every instance in which the president threatens or authorizes the use of military force. I will insist that, except in cases of actual attack on the United States, every authorization of the use of military force by the president is unconstitutional unless preceded by a declaration of war by Congress. In other words, Congress must take back the peace and war power given to it by the Constitution. I oppose any and all efforts of the U.S. government to dominate or intervene in the internal affairs of other nations by means other than military aggression. For example, intervention by the Central Intelligence Agency or other spy agencies, the National Endowment for Democracy, other NGOs, payments to opposition groups, mercenaries, death squads, terrorist groups, or the use of economic sanctions that have led to innocent deaths, including those of children. Finally, I recognize that U.S. military and military aggression contributes greatly to the climate crisis and other environmental devastation. I recognize that our government has been literally spending trillions of taxpayer dollars on wars that not only make us less safe, but dollars that could have been used to combat the climate crisis, create good-paying jobs at home, refurbish our infrastructure, build sustainable energy and transportation, educate our children, pay for college tuition, and provide health care for all. Accordingly, if elected to Congress, I pledge to cut the military budget by a minimum of 50%, with the funds thus saved allocated to combating the climate crisis through the Green New Deal and otherwise expended on meeting real human needs. I'd like to contrast all of what I just said in the peace pledge with Senator Durbin, who voted for the most recent defense authorization bill, which actually increases military spending. Also, in contrast to Senator Durbin, I support single-payer, improved Medicare for all as a workable alternative to the Affordable Care Act, which is failing. My platform also includes a $20 minimum wage, free lifelong education and student debt relief, affordable housing, and a secure retirement. There are many, many other contrasts with my views and that of the Green Party with those of the Democrats and Senator Durbin. He voted to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and has otherwise pledged unquestioned support for Israel, while I favor even treatment for Israelis and Palestinians. He voted to impose economic sanctions against Iran, while I recognize, as does the peace pledge, that such sanctions directly affect the civilian population, including children's nutrition and health. He voted in 1994 for the crime bill that has led to mass incarceration. While I recognize we cannot police and incarcerate our way out of the effects of crime, instead we need to redirect resources to improve education, job training, and employment opportunities. This is why I support a Green New Deal, which was proposed by the Green Party before it became the watered-down plan by the liberal wing of the Democratic Party and rejected by Biden in the last debate. Also, Senator Durbin has voted to extend the so-called Patriot Act. While I have personally been the victim of unlawful government surveillance, I'm a card-carrying member of the American Civil Liberties Union and a longtime supporter of freedom from government surveillance of peaceful activities. Finally, I would like to emphasize on-the-ground activism outside of electoral politics. As you heard from many of the other candidates today, most of us are activists. Not only have I been a peace activist for my adult life, but I am currently on the front lines supporting Black Lives Matter as a participant, a legal observer, and even the arranger of bail for those arrested. This is in addition to my pro bono work in sealing and expunging criminal records for individuals seeking to rebuild their lives, many of these lives that were ruined because they were victims of the wars on crime and drugs. Immigration is also an important issue to me. Here again, I have been both an activist, an advocate, and an activist. I volunteered in immigration law clinics both in my home city of Rockford and in Tijuana, Mexico. In Rockford, some of those I served were dreamers, childhood arrivals who have lived in the United States for many years. I have assisted in the preparation of deferred action for childhood arrivals paperwork and know firsthand the stories of these deserving young people. We need to pass a DREAM Act that provides permanent legal status for childhood arrivals with a path to citizenship. In my 2 trips to Tijuana to assist asylum seekers, I have heard the touching and shocking stories of those trying to overcome incredible hardships, both in their countries of origin and on their long journey north, only to be stopped at our border. The present administration has placed obstacle after obstacle to block the path to freedom and a new life for these deserving people, even going so far as to separate children from their parents. I have personally witnessed in Tijuana the need to write in marker on children's arms their names and dates of birth and have parents sign declarations that in no event do they consent to being separated from their children. We can and must do better. At a minimum, we need to follow U.S. international law in granting asylum to those who qualify. We also need comprehensive immigration reform as our present system is broken. If you look over my shoulder, you will see a picture, it's not terribly large in this video, of the border wall as seen from Tijuana and the decorations that people have placed on the wall to highlight the need for freedom. As mentioned, I'm a longtime Green Party activist, and I am proud again to represent the Green Party in providing a progressive alternative to the two-party monopolies. I've purposely kept my remarks somewhat brief because I'd like to leave time for questions as we wrap up this evening. So, Steve, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, David. Yeah, we do have some questions. This question was probably for Tom Wilda, but you're both running for federal office, so it applies. They said specifically the 5th District. Albert Shaw has a question. We can expand it beyond the 5th District. He said the 5th District has an airport and many rail lines. Would you speak on how you and Congress can help in state, local transportation systems?
Well, we need to shift our funding away from highways to mass transit. We can certainly redirect the resources, especially what we save from military spending, to providing trains and other forms of mass transit that will cut down on pollution and serve all of our people, not just those who can afford automobiles.
Okay. What drives you to participate in the electoral politics?
Well, that's an excellent question because I have actually been at third-party electoral politics since the early 1970s when I ran for city council in the city of Ann Arbor on the Human Rights Party. I have no illusions that a single candidate or that a single election is going to make a significant amount of difference. But we need to build a mass movement, and one of the ways of doing that is through electoral politics. People gear up to hear political messages every 2 or 4 years when there's an election. And if we don't have our voice out there, the voices that they're going to hear are going to be pretty much the same and with offering no real alternative.
You mentioned improved Medicare for all. Can you just talk a little bit more about that and how you find how people react when you say you support that? Do you get a lot of good feedback, or how's that work out?
Well, the single payer system, Improved Medicare for All, has actually become the predominant view of the population, if you believe the polls. So it's not a novel view. And I, like maybe yourself, now that you said you hit 65, are on Medicare and see how it works. And it has worked beautifully for me. And we have a system now that's failing for any number of reasons. It's mostly an employer-based system. And now that we're having mass layoffs, especially with the virus, people are losing their health care. We need a system where your health care stays with you, whether you have a job, whether you don't have a job, whether you're retired, whether you're working, and not something that's tied to a single employer. I've spoken to so many people who said, well, I really don't like my job, but I got to hold on for another 3 years until I'm old enough for Medicare, and then I can, I can get insurance. And I'm only staying at this job because of the insurance. We have really limited ourselves, really limited our freedom by having a fragmented healthcare system that has a great profit motive for insurance companies and who are not looking out for our health.
Yes, and I believe you're the only Senate candidate that favors single-payer health care. Is that true?
Well, in Illinois, yes.
Senator
Durbin has not come out in favor of it, and I'm sure the Libertarians have not. And there's another candidate, Willie Wilson, who's running on his own party, and I'm not exactly sure what his position is. I'm going to be involved in a multi-person debate that he will likely be participating on next week, and I'll have a better idea of what his position is. But I believe I am the only Senate candidate in Illinois that is for single payer.
Will the Democrats and Republicans be participating in that debate?
As far as I know, I haven't been given the details. I've just been told what time to be available. And I know it was postponed today because Senator Durbin was still in committee with the judicial nomination. So I'm assuming that everybody will at least be invited, and we'll see who shows up.
I would definitely want to watch that. That would be fantastic to see you debate the two-party tyranny. I look forward to that. You mentioned being concerned. It's an issue for you, militarization and military spending. And you also mentioned that you signed the Green Party of U.S. Peace Pledge. So can you talk about all that?
Well, I went through the Peace Pledge in some detail. It's a great document. I believe that our Rich Whitney had a hand in getting it drafted. It speaks to all aspects of militarization, the spending, the environment, the fact that the wars that we've been involved with, for the most part, are not justified, that we also do non-military or semi-military intervention in many countries, which was pointed out earlier is one of the reasons that there's a crisis in Central America, driving people to leave their home countries, make a perilous journey to the border, only to be turned back by our immigration policies, our asylum policies, which are definitely out of control.
Let's see. I'm not seeing additional questions coming from the feed, the people viewing this. What's a question I haven't asked you that you really like to hear?
Well, that's a good question.
Turn around to you.
Yeah. Well, you did ask a question that I didn't give a complete answer to about electoral politics. It's so easy for me to see that the two-party system is broken, that it has not been much of a journey to get to the Green Party many years back. I was involved in other third parties up to before that, and I don't believe I have ever voted for anyone but a third party candidate for president since I was allowed to vote at age 18 so many years ago. So, so that I see the need for third party politics to raise the issues that aren't being raised, give people an alternative. We sometimes are cast in the role of spoilers, but as Howie Hawkins pointed out last night, in most, as Rich Whitney usually points out, there's nothing to spoil. But as Howie Hawkins pointed out last night, that many of the people who are going to vote for the Green Party would not have voted at all. They could not have walked into that polling place, held their nose, and voted for a Democrat. And so we are doing a real service by offering an alternative to people who like our values, who agree with our values, and want to vote their values.
How about agriculture in Central Illinois?
Well, we have essentially broken whatever agricultural system we used to have. Getting into a trade war with China was not the smartest policy we ever had. Congress, unfortunately, had given the president kind of unlimited power to do this, but they could also take it away. And that's something that they have to do. We get into this trade war. We essentially are on the verge of destroying our farms, and then we bail them out with billions of dollars. This makes absolutely no sense, and that we need a farm policy that keeps prices at a level that farmers can make a profit, that family farmers can stay in business. We need to move to organic agriculture, which there is a tremendous movement that way already by small producers. I'm involved in some of that locally. We really can do better and stop this growth of mega businesses, mega farm businesses that we are subsidizing with billions of dollars to keep them afloat, keep them rich, and not necessarily make us healthier with the kind of food they produce.
The previous speaker, Tom Wilda, who of course is running for Congress, so he's concerned about these federal issues. I asked him about police reform, and he pointed out that that's kind of a local matter. But there is the issue of qualified immunity, and I think Congress has discussed that. What's your position on that? And could you explain that a little bit for some people that might not know what that's about?
Well, qualified immunity was actually a judicial creation. It basically says that essentially to do something for a policeman to have done something wrong, it has to be absolutely egregious that they're qualified. They have qualified immunity for their kind of everyday acts of malfeasance. That's something that I think will be eroded. The legislature could certainly end it. The judiciary that created it could end it. Rather than talk about necessarily defunding the police or abolishing the police, it's maybe a better thing to say we need to reimagine the police. We are asking the police to do jobs that they have no business doing. They are not social workers. We have a social worker on our slate of candidates. They're not trained adequately to deal with many situations that they are asked to face. We do not need police in our schools. We have put police in situations where they are going to fail. And also, as was pointed out, they're not solving crimes. So we just had a police shooting in Rockford, where I live. It was a typical event, all too typical event, where it started with a traffic stop, outstanding warrants, a chase, and then the unarmed black man being shot in the back as he fled from police. Luckily, he is recovering and did not. It was not fatal, but it certainly could have been with multiple shots to the back. So we have a broken system. We are now recognizing we have a broken system. I can tell you how broken the system is because I'm dealing with its effect in trying to help people get their records cleared up so that they can go on with their lives. I have seen people arrested upwards of 30 times without a single one of those resulting in convictions. It's a catch and release policy. What that would do to someone's life, to be arrested, put in jail, let go, and then rearrested and put in jail some months later. I just can't imagine what that would do to someone's life. We really have not only a police system, but a justice system that is in great need of reform. Some of that can be done on the federal level. We can redirect our resources. We had a federal government that was giving excess military equipment to police forces so they could look like, they could essentially be driving things that look like tanks. And we can reverse that kind of a system and use the resources of the federal government to improve policing rather than turn it into military.
Kind of a follow-up question to that is a question from Jamal Mahmood. The number one industry that provides jobs is small businesses. The number two industry that provides jobs is the criminal justice system. That being said, if lawyers, judges, and police officers are depending on their paychecks, how do we eliminate their positions in society without hurting their families and their livelihoods?
Well, this is the same question that we talk about coal miners. In other words, if someone is performing a job that is superfluous and not needed and actually is harmful, with coal miners producing coal that ruin our environment and with a justice system that has led to mass incarceration, that we need to retrain these people for jobs that are useful to our country and to themselves. We are still going to have disputes. We can have restorative justice. We can have alternative dispute resolution. We can have all kinds of all kinds of alternative jobs. There certainly should be and must be jail guards that lose their jobs because we have to end mass incarceration. We have small towns in Illinois that are highly dependent on a single industry, which turns out to be a prison. At least in Illinois, we don't have private prisons. We've outlawed those. So we, just like we have to retrain people in the unclean energy industry to move them into a clean energy industry or other jobs, we need to do that with some of the members of our so-called justice system that is not providing justice.
Yeah, something I was going to mention in your answer to the last question, which is, of course, is related to this one, is there's also a huge problem, like in our county jails. You have a large percentage of the prisoners in those jails have mental illness issues. It's just not appropriate. They become like our state mental hospitals.
Yeah.
So that's another example of overreach of the justice system covering other areas they just don't have expertise in.
Yeah, the state some years back made a big effort to close our state-run mental health institutions, and that probably would have been a good idea, except that when they promised to fund community-based alternatives, that turned out to be an empty promise. So right now, the sheriff of Cook County is often points out he's the largest provider of mental health services in the state, and he's not equipped to do that, and his people are not equipped to do that. We need to reform the bail system so we won't have so many people in those jails, many of whom are there because of mental health issues. There is a huge movement going on in many states, including Illinois, to do away with money bail. In other words, why should someone who could afford to post thousands of dollars get to be out awaiting trial, whereas someone who can't raise that money is stuck in jail away from their family if they did have a menial job, or they would lose that because they aren't, they can't show up for work if they're in jail. It was kind of interesting with COVID. They decided that they would not in Illinois, in Rockford, Illinois. They decided that they would not routinely take people for minor offenses to jail. They would just give them a notice to appear in court. And the jail population began to shrink, which was excellent, especially in times of COVID, because sometimes our jails are the largest, except for senior citizens complex, the largest spreaders of the virus. And I wrote an op-ed for the paper saying, why did it take a virus to have us have a policy that's much more sane than locking people up because they don't have any money? And so, and it, at great cost to us, it costs us as much to put people, to incarcerate people as to send them to college. And we could certainly benefit as a society much more by sending people to college than sending people to prison.
Well, we're at the end here of our time. So is there anything you want to say in closing?
The only thing I'd say in closing is that I do thank all the organizers for this event, that we need to get our message out. I would like to say that in contrast to the kind of press blackout that has plagued our president and vice presidential candidate, I have been treated very respectfully by the press. They have given me equal time. They have contacted me. I've been on radio and television and in the newspapers. I don't know if that reflects an increased interest in our policies and in change, but we are getting some traction here in Illinois that unfortunately our federal candidates are not being afforded. But I think our message is getting out, and we certainly have to do it by alternative means such as this, but we are also getting more play in the mainstream media, and I think that's a credit to us.
All right, David, I want to thank you for joining us, and that wraps this part up. I'm just going to say some final words, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So lastly, I'll just remind you that I said it in the beginning, but if you didn't get a chance to watch this whole video or you want to share it with others, this was part 2 of our Illinois Green Party virtual gala. And you can find both the videos for part 1 and part 2 on the Illinois Green Party YouTube channel and our Facebook page. Also, if you're excited about these candidates and you want to help out, you can go to ilgp.org/candidates, and there's links there to all the candidates' websites. And if you want to hit that donate button or that volunteer button, you can help any of those great candidates out. I mentioned ilgp.org/vote. And if you've got any questions about voting in Illinois, that's the place to go. Or if you have voting irregularities you run into, that's the place to report it. We've got ilgp.org/platform, and that's where you can read our rock solid 40-page platform and read about our 10 key values. I guarantee you're going to be impressed by that platform. If you want to become a member of the ILGP, you can do that at ilgp.org/membership. We are a dues-paying membership, so that's how we support candidates. That's how we do things like this broadcast. So it's important to become a member and help the Illinois Green Party that way. You can also volunteer in general with the Illinois Green Party, or you go to ilgp.org/volunteer, and we have a fantastic organizer, Anna Schiefelbein, who is one of our speakers today. She's also running for office, and she's a member of our staff, and she will get you connected with a campaign or a chapter, or help you start a new chapter. And of course, we have an ilgp.org/donate. You can donate at any time there. And the last, but maybe not least, is one other way to help us out financially is to buy some of our swag. So if you go to DuPageGreens.org/shop, there you can get things like this Howie mask, and you can order that. There's 3 different colors. You can get a Vote Green Party bumper magnet. You can get a Illinois Green Party t-shirt. You can get, and we got at least one order of these since yesterday, because when I mentioned it on yesterday's broadcast, this is the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly t-shirt. So that's a humorous way to portray a very serious problem. And we also have, if you're in the DuPage County area or collar counties, you can look back here and see our Vote Green Party sign, and we have Howie Hawkins yard signs. Also, shipping those outside of DuPage County, collar counties is a bit difficult, but we can try to connect you with a local chapter. And actually, if you want the Hawkins sign, the best way to go is to go to Hawkins, HowieHawkins.us, right, Chris? I'm sure he's going to put it up there. And that will, you can shop there for this sign. Oh, there you go. There's a direct link, shop.howie20.us. You can now purchase this sign at that site for $20 with no shipping. And that's actually pretty reasonable when you can, if you start looking into shipping these kind of signs around the country, that is a very good overall price for those signs. So we can't compete with that. Locally, we can give you a sign for $3, but that's if we can hand it off to you locally. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I want to thank our candidates, and I want to thank Chris Blankenhorn and Anna Schiefelbein for pulling this together. And we got, what, 13 days left to vote now, right? So get out there, have a plan, and be sure to vote. Thanks, everybody.